Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are, of course, talking wrestling after almost a month being away due to the WWE tour schedule. We are back, we are talking, and we have some news for you. Our headlines today are going to be about the Bullet Club at WrestleMania. Yes, we're talking Cody Rhodes and all that jazz. We're going to talk Cody Rhodes and John Cena and what they've been given permission to do. We're going to talk a message that I want to send to Mandy Rose. We're going to talk Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair, how the WWE are not loving what's happening so far. We're going to talk the WrestleMania card, particularly the amount of multi-man matches that we're going to be seeing, or at least multi-person. We're going to talk about some issues WWE are having with Jey Uso versus Gunther, and why it did not main event as was originally intended night one of WrestleMania. I'll say originally, it's always a bit of an interesting one. We're going to talk Sami Zayn, where he's been recently, Nia Jackson, where she's been recently, Alexa Bliss, and where she's been recently. We're going to talk what the plans are for Bayley going forwards, as well as a bit more about Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns going into our main event of night one of WrestleMania. We're then going to have a quick review of the WrestleMania card, a quick review of a piece of news in my last piece of, my last spoiler warning, where we're going to talk about something that I reported, which is certainly looks like it's been proven true. And then I'm going to give you a quick read of a little bit of news that I've got going forwards. I have been putting together for a while now a new YouTube show, and hopefully a new YouTube show that you're all going to be very much enjoying. It is about wrestling, but it's also a little bit true crime, and I hope you'll stick with me for that one so I can give you a little hint as to what we are building towards. I'm going to make sure to say hi to everyone. I'm going to make sure to catch up with the chat. I pinned a comment on the top of the YouTube saying, can we break 100 likes? We have 23 so far, 63 of you here. Be sure to hit that thumbs up. We're also live on TikTok for anyone who wants to join over there. Everton, I can see you chatting away, and we will be joining you shortly. Welcome, Luis, as well. But first, I want to start by talking about something that Cody Rhodes did during his promo against John Cena. And we're going to talk about the promo in full at this point. There's quite a lot I want to dive into. Now, Cody Rhodes and John Cena have both been given permission to swear, pretty much as they want. Netflix have been warned ahead of time, and Netflix has basically said to WWE, just don't go mad. Just don't go mad, which has essentially allowed John Cena and Cody Rhodes to go as far as they want. Now, all of their promos are scripted, all of their promos are pre-arranged, and all of their promos are agreed with each other. So the WWE, in particular Triple H, was working with them to try and make sure that, at least in the most recent promo during Raw, they were both made to look very, very strong. And they were both made to look very, very strong. As their match at WrestleMania will guarantee that they will both be made to look very, very strong. There is a hint that was thrown out there that I don't think was really picked up on, and that is Cody Rhodes, after laying down John Cena, made two icons, both of which refer to the Bullet Club. Firstly, the Kitsune, which is the Fox God. Is everyone aware of the Fox God? Is everyone aware of how the Fox God works? Kitsune is a Japanese fox god. It is the motion that is being co-opted to the Too Sweet, which is a Bullet Club move, suggesting some involvement of Bullet Club members in WWE. That limits us to AJ Styles and Finn Balor, both of whom I feel need a bit more direction going forwards. Could be interesting, we'll leave it there. The other icon he made was a typical bullet insignia and pointing at WrestleMania. Now, it could be he's signing a hit job, or it could be that he's stating, I'm going to have backup. I don't think we're at the point just yet where we're going to see that backup. I think this may be a more long-term story, with John Cena and The Rock gaining an extra person and Cody Rhodes gaining some backup along the way. But with everything going on with Judgment Day right now, I suspect Finn Balor is about to be alone and bereft. AJ Styles also finds himself with no backup. No Michin, no Carl Anderson, no Luke Gallows. So I'm just going to put it out there. If Cody Rhodes needs backup, he has two former leaders of the Bullet Club that he could potentially call upon. That is my first piece of news. Plenty more to come. We're going to be talking directly to Mandy Rose. We're going to be talking about Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, Jey Uso versus Gunther, Sami Zayn, Nia Jax, Roxanne, Bayley, as well as plenty more about the WrestleMania card. So stick around. We do have plenty to share. Everton is asking about Kevin Owens. Haven't heard a thing. Have not heard a thing. Also says Evolution set for July and will be announced Monday, apparently. Nice to see people putting their money where their mouth is. On Monday, we will find out how accurate these reports are. It's always interesting when we just simply, at this point, don't know. We just don't know, but we are going to find out. I'm going to catch up with the chat on the YouTube side now. We have 31 likes, 87 people watching. Remember to hit that thumbs up, guys. I'm sure we can at least get to 50 with the amount of people already here. Even if you're lurking, remember, a little thumbs up goes a long way. 91 viewers now, that could keep going. On the TikTok side, we already have 180 likes. Let's keep it going. Roy says, hi Tom, how are you? Doing well, thank you, Roy. Joey says, do you have any news on plans for Miro's WWE return? Beyond what I'd already reported, which was that he was going to be re-signing with the WWE. I reported that more than a year ago, that the WWE was interested and that AEW no longer were. I've also been ahead of the game on this one for a while, but when it comes to plans, right now there aren't really any. Creative are putting them together, the idea being it will be after WrestleMania that we see Miro return. Always a good bit of news, I feel. Always a good bit. Welcome, Jordan. Good to see you. Joey says, do you know why the build has been lackluster outside of Cena and Cody? Quality is in the eye of the beholder. I wouldn't necessarily say lackluster for all of it. I think CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns have certainly been incredible so far. Really quite fun. However, I think there has been a level of exhaustion because WrestleMania is taking place 2 weeks after it normally would. And I do think that's something to highlight. Ole, been a while, very good to see you. Doing very well, thank you, hope you are too. Alex said, is the Kevin Owens injury legit? I have heard nothing about an injury to Kevin Owens. I'd imagine we're going to find out relatively soon. Joey says, SRS reported Maria May's contract is up this summer. Do you expect WWE to have big interest? Yes, I don't expect it to matter. Sean says, we're only a few weeks until Mania, still no Becky. It's looking like she may miss this year. I may have an update for you. Joey's asking, do I know how Kevin Owens got injured? I don't even know that he has got injured. I can't report on things that I haven't been able to confirm. Thank you, Marcel. Sai says, evening, Tom and all. Evening, Sai. And the sick horror king man says, hi, Tom. Welcome, sir. Calvin says, hey, Tom, can I begin to tell how Triple H has crossed so many lines when it comes to Austin Theory? No one can tell that he isn't being bullied because he was pushed by you-know-who. Triple H has got to go. Wouldn't go that far, mate. Backwards says, I've seen per WrestleVotes that Miro signed with WWE. I remember you saying he signed more than a month ago. Because he did. He did. Everton says, who's Phoenix's opponent tonight? We'll find out shortly. Don't want to spoil that one. And also having Finn pin Penta is crazy too. Didn't see that coming. That is essentially just to try not to deify Penta. There are concerns that they could overplay his hand and make it so it looks like a procession going into WrestleMania that he would win the Intercontinental Championship. They're also trying to give Finn at least one win so we gain some credibility going into a match that he's very unlikely to win. Cal says, I really hope... Oh, sorry, one sec. Cal says, I really hope we see the Wyatt Six back tonight. Again, after WrestleMania is when I expect them. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Daniel says, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome, Daniel. Sean says, do you know anything about Becky turning down creative? Fan of Becky's on X is telling people she has, which is why she hasn't been back yet. That hasn't happened. I can state categorically that has not happened. Cal says, do you see the House of Black following Alistair? They can't. Contractually, they are limited and unable to do so. What I will say is that the WWE are heavily invested in transplanting the entire House of Black directly from AEW to WWE. All this reporting about, oh, Alistair Black's coming back to WWE. No one could have known. Years I've been telling you, the second he can leave, he's coming back to WWE. People need to start reporting this. Roy says, what was the best European crowd? For me, it was Belgium. They all roll together for me, I gotta be honest. Thank you, Trekopedia, for keeping the love going on the likes. There's almost at 30. Clearly, we've already had a bit of a boost because we're already up to 42. 112 people watching, though, so still a small amount. Leon says, hi Tom, hope you're doing well. Doing well, thank you, Leon. And Bad Boy says, any update on Alexa Bliss? I do have a minor update on Alexa Bliss. Yes, so stick around. Horror Kingman says, news on Rey Fenix. Beyond what I've already reported, he has now signed and he will be debuting very soon. You've already seen the vignettes. You already know it's coming. I'm excited for SmackDown. What can I say? Draco Peter says, Bullet Club, but he also has someone else who the glass crashes. Everyone goes nuts as backup for Cody, possibly. If you mean Steve Austin, kinda doesn't, no. Joey says, what other matches do you expect to happen at Mania? I will go through the card shortly. Shaw Game says, does that mean that AJ is likely to re-sign? Means he's exactly as likely to re-sign as he was previously. It has absolutely nothing to do with the likelihood of re-signing. Completely unrelated. Marcel's happy the show is back. Me too, mate. I've missed you guys. Really have. Kelly says, hello, Tom. Hello, Kelly. And Cal says, also have to say, really loved Raquel Rodriguez on Chris Van Vlie's podcast talking about her skin condition. She's an amazing woman. She's had a lot of attention recently, and honestly, I think she's very deserving of the opportunities that are coming her way. Sid says, have you been watching WWE Evolve? If you have, what did you think of it? Haven't had the time. Trying to renovate a home, trying to parent 2 children, trying to balance a lot of things. Just haven't had time. Welcome, BM. How you doing, mate? C-Max says, what's up, Tom, the goat of wrestling spoilers? Appreciate you. BM was at Raw and SmackDown last week. I'm glad you had a good time, mate. Juan says, hey, Tom, do you expect Mariah May to re-sign with AEW? Yes. They will go all out, if you'll forgive the pun. Joey says, I noticed the reporters at PWN all hide behind avatars and fake names. I've pointed that out about a wide variety of different reporters over the years. You cannot tell me that they're not Zero News, because you literally can't prove it. You can prove I'm me, here's my face, there's my name, etc, etc. You can check my record. You can't check theirs. Trekipedia says, 40 likes, keep the love coming, already up to 50. I'm guessing that little pinned comment is definitely working. 117 people watching. You guys really have missed me. I feel it, guys. I feel it. Yes, Bad, we will be talking about Alexa Bliss. You've asked, I've already answered. Chris Leclerc says, looks like Andrade is going to be Rey Fenix's first match tonight on SmackDown. That is certainly a rumour. Billy says, those European crowds are amazing. Further annoys me is Saudi Arabia got a major PLE before them. Triple H has now been very open about the fact that it literally comes down to a bidding war. Before Triple H confirmed this during this tour, for the last 2 years, the only person reporting that it comes down to bids from the individual city or country was Tom Colohue. Remember this stuff. BM says, given the UK will hold a number of Raws and SmackDowns this year, does that mean we aren't getting a PLE? Completely unrelated. CFC says, curious, I think PWInsider stated Kyrie is close to returning. Is it wrong to say she's been ready and they're waiting for Asuka to be ready and both will return together? Yes, that is unfortunately incorrect. BM says, I hear Triple H's appearance on BBC Sunday Brunch got some bizarre reactions. Any thoughts? Really weird to see, and he didn't seem to understand eating food. Yeah, you cook it with your hands. It's very strange. Rickan, I'm not going to commit at this point in time. As I say, I've been saying for a while now, Aleister Black was coming back. Here we are. Horror Kingman says, do you think Solo turns on Jacob before WrestleMania and after? I think now it'll be after. I think at this point, we could be heading into a multi-man for the United States Championship that features Jacob Fatu. Kevin says, by next year, WWE needs to announce anybody wins the Royal Rumble. You can choose any titles, but not main event WrestleMania. Sadly, very true. Everton says, Jimmy Uso is what the Jay and Gunter feud needed. Jay about to crash out and win at Mania. BM says, should we be seeing Jimmy turning on Jay, potentially costing him their title? There seemed to be a subtle hint of that on Monday. What, the point at which he was beaten so bloody? Why would he turn on the guy who didn't beat him bloody? I mean, the Roman thing happened. No, Cal, I haven't lost interest in the Wyatts. I just think WWE has. Sean says, according to Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer, WWE denies that Julia was banged up and taking time off, so I asked why take the title off her, to give it to Stephanie Vaca so that they can move relatively quickly to Julia being called up. She's not cleared. That's all I can say. BM, it is all here on YouTube now. Twitch shows, unfortunately, are no longer a thing. I do suggest if people do not wish to support financially over on the Twitch side, they are, of course, very welcome to cancel that. I am not planning to go live there in the near future. KJ says, hey Tom, long time no see. How are you doing? Very well, thank you, KJ. Welcome to the show. Sid says, WWE announces partnership with Drumstick for WrestleMania 41. Bam Bam is asking about news for Wired 6. I've already shared all of the news that I have on Wired 6. As I've mentioned, I did not expect to see them before WrestleMania. KJ says, any Becky news? You didn't mention her name with the others. There is a small bit of Becky news that I will be sharing. Yes. Everton says, what if Sami comes back and costs Jay? Okay, so the question essentially from myself, Everton, is what if blank comes back and costs Jay? Then blank would come back and cost Jay. That's literally the answer. That's the only answer it's possible to give, unfortunately. Marcel says, I don't understand at all why they gave Stephanie 2 belts, then have her relinquish one. What was the point? Making her look strong. Also, yeah, they didn't originally want to do that. Like, they didn't want to do that, but we are where we are. Aled says, if they scrapped the Bayley and Roxanne feud, if they have, I found it weird. Roxanne lost a qualifier to be on stand and deliver. I do have a bit of news on that to come. Trekkie Peter says, anytime, Tom, do you have any news on Shotzi? There is no news on Shotzi, unfortunately. The WWE, and that includes NXT right now, simply don't have much for her. Calvin says, I really believe Triple H is intentionally ruining careers. Whoever's in charge always has people who believe that. Sean says, does WWE have interest in Mina Shirakawa? Kind of yes, kind of no. She'd probably need to go to Rossi first, and I don't think she wants to do that for obvious reasons. Cal says, do you think we'll get anything tonight, a glitch or a vignette? Yes. Just a little tiny bit. Calvin says, happy the stream is back. The European tour was amazing. Daniel says, where have you been, Tom? At home the entire time. But because Raw and SmackDown was live while I would have been live, it would end up being a watch party rather than a spoiler warning, so it's not what I do at this point in time. Eric says, have you already talked about the KO injury? Yes, Eric, in that I've said somebody has reported that it is an injury. I have not been able to confirm. I have no news on that because I simply have not been told anything about it, and anyone I've asked has not told me anything about it. Aled says, when do you think we find out the favour from Punk? When WWE decides what it is. Horror Kingman says, how the new house looking? Feel like home yet? I mean, yes and no. Yes and no. The office here is not exactly the priority, as you can likely tell. But bit by bit, it's starting to feel more comfortable. I've been here nearly a year now. Justin says, do you know when Alexa Bliss is returning? More on that shortly. BM says, when will we see Asuka again? When she is cleared. Dad says, any news? When could Jimmy be back? Relatively soon. It's not a write-off. It's really not. Charles says, the fact that someone named BJ Bethel is seen as a reliable source for his Max report, while Tom never gets the credit he deserves for actually being right, is hilarious and disgusting. To my knowledge, that was confirmed by Tony Khan. So, interesting. The other Mike says, UK crowds are okay. They're a bit annoying when superstars are trying to promo. The superstars, king love it. Hank says, is it true Rock and Cena third person is not a man but Charlotte Flair instead? It is not, but I like where your head's at. And Irish says, my guy Tom, and he's watching The Pig. Thank you very kindly, Irish. Welcome to the show. Calvin says, do you have a feeling WWE may be doing King of the Queen of the Ring one year and Night of Champions the next year? No, again, that's building on someone else's report, which I've not been able to confirm. CFC says, something I'm curious about. I remember a Raw a while back. Dakota mentioned still having the IC belt in her mind. Haven't seen anything yet. Is it something that picks up after WrestleMania? More on that shortly. Declan says, hi Tom. Welcome, Declan. Eric says, do you think Jimmy gets a shot at the US title at Mania? No. Cal says, I've already seen Jimmy turn on Jay. Would be so stupid to do it again. Declan is still missing Becky Lynch. Horror Kingman says, do you think Jeff Cobb goes to WWE or AEW? Not sure at this point. I don't have a source there. Roy says, would you ever go live on Facebook? Probably not. Probably not. I don't love the concept over on Facebook. I've been live on there before, but now with the whole moderation policies thing, I don't think it's going to help me. I really don't. BM, you got to give me a source there. I'm not going to read it out. You're going to have to tell me where you heard this from. Eric says, who do you think Liv and Raquel defend against at Mania? Multiple teams, but small numbers at this point in time. Small numbers at this point in time. Sean says, Ricky Starks has broken the record, fastest to win a title after debut. Kevin Owens had the record at 60 days. Ethan Page broke at 40. Ricky broke that at 33. What can I say? There was a favour that was owed. BM says, this agreement between WWE and TNA, I assume means AEW and TNA no longer have a relationship. They do, but the forbidden door has closed, and it is said to be AEW that closed it. Roy says, when do you think Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes will happen? Depends if Cody keeps the championship. And he's back. That is correct. And good to see you, mate. Hello, Ishii. Good to see you. Missed you guys too. Right, so I'm a little bit more caught up and I want to get to my next piece of news. My next piece of news is a direct message that I want to send to Mandy Rose. Now, this is going to be a tricky one. If I had a bigger following, then this message would definitely get to Mandy Rose. In fact, I do believe and have said in the past that one of the reasons that CM Punk rejoined WWE is because in my prime, as it were, I spent a lot of time communicating to anyone who would listen, including CM Punk, that WWE just were waiting for a phone call, which is, of course, what eventually would happen. So, here is my message to Mandy Rose that I'm pretty confident no one's ever actually gonna see beyond the people in this room. But here is my message to Mandy Rose. Recently in an interview, Mandy Rose, you stated that you don't know if the WWE would even be interested in taking you back. Call them. That's my message. Call them. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. I don't think this is a mountain that can't be climbed. Yes, it may mean making small tweaks to the way that you do certain things. One of them will undoubtedly be when you are working on your more adult materials, do it off WWE property. But this is not a mountain that cannot be surmounted. Call them. Call them. 69 likes, and that is nice, but we have 133 people here. Hit that thumbs up. And while you're at it, tell me, would you take Mandy Rose back in the WWE? If you had an opportunity to sign Mandy Rose back, would you take her, and what would you have her doing? Jackie says, thank you for the update on Shotzi. My friends and I noticed she wasn't around for a while. Also happy Ray Phoenix is showing up tonight. Glad good things are happening to a good person like him. Cal says, what I find confusing is that Rock hasn't been around once. Very, very busy man, and I am expecting to see him at WrestleMania. Thank you, Declan. Appreciate you. BM says, weird question, but given the move to Netflix, does that mean bars can't show WWE or do watch parties? Few venues I see are advertising WrestleMania watch parties, but I thought this wasn't a thing with Netflix. It is a thing with Netflix. There are rules against doing it without a license, but you can contact Netflix directly, and in fact you can contact WWE PR to get an agreement with WWE to essentially share pay-per-view. The WWE can also provide individual feeds on a case-by-case basis that allows you to work around Netflix if you feel that is a right call also. Yeah, me too, Roy, me too. 123 says, anything on The Rock third man? We will be discussing that. That is our headline and we'll be getting to it. Cal says, we're 15 days away from a watch party. Oh, I hope you're excited, mate. I hope you're excited. Also, guys, you're absolutely smashing this. I need to pin the chat more often. We have 74 likes already. We're only 25 minutes in. That is fantastic. Are we going to hit the 100? Because we're actually pretty close. With the amount of people here right now, we can hit that 100. Ishii, I've already commented on that. I think when it comes to the Wyatt Six, we will see them continue to build quietly in the background. We are back in America, which is, of course, where they have been the entire time. BM says, could Cody be turning heel, aligning a Rock at Mania? Nope. And being down Cena with a Rock? Nope. Aled says, Julia is believed to have an ankle injury, although has also been denied by those close to the situation from Wrestling Observer. Thank you for sourcing, Aled. Cal says, how has Tony Khan and AEW reacted to WWE shots at them over the last 2 weeks? Haven't noticed. AEW nowadays are not so focused on what WWE are doing, they're more focused on what they are doing. Bam says Cena is apparently advertised for a lot of week shows after WrestleMania. Do you expect him to win? At this point, personally, no. Stranger things have happened. Calvin says, do you think Becky could return at WrestleMania? More on that shortly. Jeremy says, just coming into stream, I pray the third man isn't Drew. It's not. BM WrestleMania is not a source. They just repeat what other people say. Alex says, SRS has reported that TJP is a free agent. If so, the women's division has lost probably their greatest producer in WWE. Probably their greatest producer. BM, thank you kindly for becoming a channel member over here on the YouTube side. I very much appreciate it. Thank you very kindly. Calvin says, who do you think should host WrestleMania? I would say Miz or ATDU. No. I don't get the host thing. I really don't. Sean says, do you think we see Joe Hendry appear on WWE TV this year again? NXT TV. Eric, the setup is very temporary. Tomorrow I'm planning to move all of my setup over to that corner. Then I'll have a window and it'll be lovely. But I have to paint it first and I have to finish chipping away at the... Also bought a punch bag. There's a lot going on, guys. A lot going on. But yeah, still very much a lot of moving parts. Sean says, Saraya said she'd come to WWE in a heartbeat. Do you see her returning now that she's left AEW? No. BM said, just want to state for the record, I do not believe in Joe Hendry. Also apparently does not believe in Mandy Rose. Matthew says, absolutely Mandy should come back. Restart Toxic Attraction. CFC said, personally I wouldn't mind Mandy considering the talent upcoming. Brad would not take Mandy back. Matthew just says Mandy and doesn't say anything else. Ashley says yes. Chris Leclerc says yes. Interesting, Billy. Interesting. Trekkie says no on Mandy. Alyssa says, do see Cody Rhodes win one. Tay's too big feud. Draw McIntyre, Randy Orton. Going after Cody Rhodes. Howdy and White Six says, yes, I would take Mandy back and maybe reform Toxic Attraction. Cal says, sure, if Mandy wants to do it, yeah, definitely bring her back. Her adult content is her business. The other Mike says, nobody's starving to see Mandy Rose in ring. I promise you that. BM says, I think that's altogether across both streams I've been following for 3 years now. Quite possibly, we've been doing this for nearly 5. Strugger's welcome says, awesome and such a brilliant listen. Thank you for joining. Backwards says, Tom, have you seen any of Dave Meltzer's bizarre reports lately? I've seen some of them. By and large, I try to ignore the fact that he exists. Just saves time. Everton says, I'd take Mandy back and revisit the Otis story. WWE don't like to repeat themselves. C-Max says, do you see AEW finally taking the belt off of Moxley this weekend? No, the person who was originally meant to win it is apparently injured. Dad says, do you see Kenny and Hangman making a tag team again? Don't really know on that one, to be honest. Lots of things at play. Chris says, hi Tom, welcome back. Have you heard any news on Sting being allowed to induct Lex Luger into WWE Hall of Fame? What do you mean allowed? If WWE want him, they'll reach out. There's no allowed or not. He can say yes or no. That's his contract. Tyler says, I know this probably isn't going to happen, but I hope Randy is the third person. BM, the Hall of Fame is pretty much locked in. Oh, thank you. I got that wrong. Thank you, Michael, for the clarification. I did think that was a reference to TJ Wilson. It was TJP. I did misread that. Thank you, Alexa Bliss Gamer, as well. That is actually who I was referring to there, TJ Wilson, who is not TJP. Very different situation. Thank you guys for clarifying for me. Eric said, is WWE interested in bringing Saraya back? Answer that question so many times. No, Calvin, haven't yet, but from what I can tell, she's very much taken over the podcast spot from people like myself. Credit to her. Trekkipedia says, do you have any of WWE Funko Pops? No, I don't understand them. Eric would take Mandy back. Roy would not take Mandy back. Cal says, thank the Lord, Brock Lesnar's contract is up next month. Hopefully he'll slither into his cave of irrelevancy. He would if people stopped mentioning him on shows like this. Juan says, hey Tom, happy that AEW isn't falling for the WWE bait. Yet the ratings keep dropping even though good stuff is going on. Ratings have about balanced out, to be honest. It's kind of what we'd expect. I wouldn't necessarily say they're sinking like a stone anymore. But I think they're doing good things, but they're pretty much getting exactly the viewership that they should expect. Alyssa says, do see Cody Rhodes win at 1. No business part-time champion. Alex says, do you know if Britt Baker is injured or where she is? Not working at this point in time is all I can say. There is not an injury. There is instead personal issues. Trekipedia says, have this feeling Darby is going to take the belt off Moxley, meaning we have to wait until July. Many people have had that feeling for a while now. WrestleBuzz says, hey Tom, do you expect Aleister Black to come back and get an immediate push or slowly work him back in? Depends what you mean by immediate push. If what you're thinking is come back and immediately win the World Championship, no. But come back and win some matches, yes. Chris says, I was under the presumption that Sting was under AEW contract. He is. However, he's not necessarily under a ironclad, you must do as we say contract. He's under a very different contract now, which sort of is more of a merch deal. BM also mentions AEW contract. As I say, it's not the same contract that the general performers have. Very different situation. Right, next piece of news. And also, we're 130 people watching on YouTube, 1,700 likes on TikTok, 83 on YouTube. 17 more to the 100, guys. 17 more. 17 more. Next piece of news. There are concerns in the WWE that Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair, the entire feud thus far is, and I quote, unsatisfying. The WWE is said to be concerned that the length of time between the WrestleMania match and the Royal Rumble win have exposed Tiffany Stratton's limited range on the mic, essentially meaning that when she's lined up against Charlotte Flair simply outdoes her on the microphone, in a way that Tiffany Stratton has not been able to recover. There are concerns that the heat behind Tiffany Stratton is starting to die out, so it seems like it might be time for Tiffany Stratton to get a bit of her own back on Charlotte Flair. The WWE are confident that they have a top face in the offing. They just don't necessarily know how to formally make that change as smoothly as they want to. Charlotte Flair is said to be working as hard as she can. However, there are some concerns that when it comes to promos, she lets herself go a little bit too hard, in much the same way that The Rock or CM Punk, or in fact John Cena, have historically done. There are similar concerns when it comes to the build for Jey Uso versus Gunther. Once again, the belief is that the momentum has stalled simply due to the delay between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. The length of time has simply made it untenable to maintain that momentum. Gunther is said to be doing fantastic. WWE very happy with how Jey Uso is working. Jimmy Uso was introduced to be a spoiler and try and keep things going, even though they ran out of time and kind of ran out of ideas. But in general, there are some concerns as regards Jey Uso versus Gunther maintaining the momentum that it should have had going into WrestleMania. Similarly, they are planning a lot of multi-man matches, but a lot of big names are going to be missing out. Now, amongst those multi-man matches, we are starting to hear about a Dominic versus Braun versus Finn Balor versus Penta match for the Intercontinental Championship. I do love the idea that we're going to get Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman versus LA Knight in a last man standing freeway. That would make Jacob Fatu look fantastic. However, I do think there is every possibility Solo Sikoa manages to sneak his way into that realm. Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu is not necessarily planned in just yet, but it is a long-term planning. As I've mentioned, Jacob Fatu is the third phase of the Bloodline story. Solo Sikoa's story was cut short simply because fans weren't really connecting with what he was doing. In addition to that, tag team championship matches also seem like they're going to be an absolute mess, and quite possibly in a very good way. Pretty Deadly seem like they're going to miss the opportunity. Street Profits will be carrying tag team championships into WrestleMania, and there are teams like DIY and teams like Motor City Machine Guns which are expected to be involved. On the other side, War Raiders, Viking Raiders, whatever you really want to call them, and New Day are essentially locked in, but they are not alone. WWE is planning a bit of a mess when it comes to this. We also, of course, have the triple threat between CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. But we also have the triple threat between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair. So they are trying to fit a lot of people in because the actual amount of matches will be lower. We're expecting 12 or 13 matches. Potentially they might push it up to 14. That is as far as Triple H is said to be willing to go. Everton says, what's your prediction for Roman, Seth and Punk? Who wins? And do you think Heyman turns on Roman? Trust me, I'm getting to that. I am getting to that. Ooh. Cal said, did you see Karrion Kross talk about his plans with Bray? Sounded so cool. Yeah, there was a lot of excitement about it. Karrion Kross was someone that a lot of people wanted to sort of elevate, but weren't necessarily wanting to lose to. WrestleBuzz says, I meant go for a title, maybe the US, or get big wins against top talent. WWE will not be essentially harming their own talent in order to push Aleister Black. BM says, DDP could be a viable option to induct Luger given he was under a WWE Legends contract. Yes. Alyssa says, betting I'd have Cody Rhodes, Tiffany lose championship at 1. The other Mike says, Tiff works better as a heel anyway. Certainly she was cheered more. Trekker PD says, 2 things that ticked me off with WWE on air. First, Charlotte interrupting Tiffany, which she is said to have apologised for, just to be clear. Second, Rhea saying no and pushing Io away. WWE doing a good job with the heels, definitely. Alex says, I don't care one bit about Jay versus Gunter. Jay isn't a main eventer. His promos are weak, and in my opinion, is just an entrance, just like Cody. Just my opinion, though. You're entitled to your opinion, so. BM says, Dominic versus Penta versus Braun versus Finn. That just sounds like confusing chaos. Cal says, if I'm honest, I think Jay wins, and if he does, he won't be champ for longer than 2 or 3 months. And Calvin says, I've got a feeling the World Heavyweight Championship may end up opening night 1. Personally, I lean towards it opening night 2. Calvin says, do you truly believe that Cena's opening segment 3 weeks ago was the reason some matches were cut short? Yes and no. We can't blame Cena for going long when the fans were that hot. We really can't. Cal says, I don't think we'll see Alexa Bliss till after Mania. More on that shortly. And Trekkipedia says, did you see the clip of Rhea chopping Buddy Matthews on their show? I laughed so hard. I have not, and I'm going to look it up. Michael says, what is the incentive on winning the Rumble if main eventing WrestleMania isn't the prize? I mean, you still get the championship match, but it's really not worth as much anymore. BM, no. We don't do watch parties anymore unless it's a big event like a WrestleMania. Alex says, I think if Heyman turns on Roman, I'd like it to be with Seth. Calvin says, I predict that Seth or Punk will either turn heel or both turn heel and team together with Paul. You predict that Seth and Punk will end up on the same side. Everton says, blessed to be alive to a spoiler warning and seeing Cena heel. Razar says, why is a non-title triple threat the main event over both the Rumble winners and the women's triple threat makes no sense? Or does it? Stick with me. Blue says, hi Tom, glad to see you back. Welcome Blue, good to see you too. Cal says, I rewatched WrestleMania 2020 today and man, seeing that Bray Cena match made me emotional. Really hope they do his legacy justice with Howdy and the Wyatts. So far, nope. Backward says, I'd love to see Jacob Fatu as US champ. I feel the day may be heading in that direction. Kevin says, Charlotte versus Tiffany, feud ice cold. Declan says, Becky Lynch is going to miss WrestleMania this year because of SRS, and WrestleMania is struggling seeking seats. Kevin says, Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio, loser leaves Judgment Day sounds more interesting over a fatal 4-way match, but that doesn't have to happen at WrestleMania. They're just trying to get the championships on the card now. Alex says, how can they blame Cena going long when they end Raw half an hour early? There's no time constraint on Netflix. Once again, to be clear, there is no blame on Cena. The only people blaming Cena are wrestling journalists who wanted to blame basically anyone. They wanted the clickbait. BM says, CM Punk did a dark match at the end of Raw in London. We all sang along with him to Queen's Fat Bottom Girls. Oh. Wants to say, Tom, Harley Cameron brought back the money puppet. Is it a concern that the money puppet is more over than Mercedes money herself? No, because it's not. BM says, as long as Io Sky wins at WrestleMania, I'm happy. Kel says, I think Seth will join The Rock end of the day. What reason does he have to stay a good guy? Calvin says, Ricky Saints winning the North American title from Sean Spears and Ethan Page laying him flat on his back after really shows how badly Nick Khan messed up. No, I don't think it does. I mean, if, for example, I decided to give a championship to, let's pick an example of someone that universally is unpopular. Eva Marie. Does that mean WWE screwed up because I put a championship on her? No. There's no correlation whatsoever. No correlation. Cal says, if I'm being honest, I don't like... You don't think the Wyatts last a year? I mean, they're amazing, but creative sucks of anything Wyatt related. Yeah, because they keep arguing. Riyadh to say, Tom, been a while since I've dropped in due to work. Hope you and your family are doing well. Doing very well, thank you, Riyadh. Welcome to the show. Rickan says, any updates if you think AJ Styles signs a new deal? Your guess is as good as mine at this point. WWE still trying. Nothing has stuck. Trekipedia says, is Mercedes going to break Jay's record? Yes, that was always the plan. Roy says, how's Blue Sky going? Going well. I'm starting to use it a little bit more for anyone who does want to check it out. Ella says, Cody did an interview, said The Rock has to do 2 matches, one with Roman and one with Cody. So exactly what I was saying then. Zeno says, any updates on the Wyatts? Nothing I haven't already reported. Kevin says, WrestleVotes report WWE going to announce Evolution pay-per-view this Monday. We will find out this Monday. Carl, they're arguing on creative. Roy says, Ethan Page returned to TNA last night. Yes, he did. So, next piece of news. I do want to point out once more, 132 people watching, 93 likes, 7 more. 7 more hits the 100. 7 more. So far, we've peaked at 139 viewers, which is mad and a little bit fantastic. Keep that ball rolling. Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was taken off TV largely to sell the beating he took from Kevin Owens, but they're also taking him off TV, 1, so that he doesn't travel during Ramadan, a period in which he will be fasting and they want to protect him, but also during this period, they are looking to work out his new deal going forwards. Now, once WrestleMania takes place, I would imagine that deal is going to be signed. My expectation is that we see Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, either in or briefly in the corner of Randy Orton, helping to ensure that Kevin Owens does not come off looking as good as he could. After that, I expect the new deal to be announced, similar to how they did with Drew McIntyre. I was able to report beforehand that Drew McIntyre had re-signed. I cannot at this point in time report the same about Sami Zayn, but what I will say is that there is a lot of people in WWE very, very, very eager to state that it is going to happen. Nia Jax was also taken off WWE for the tour, primarily because there's just no WrestleMania plans for her. The same can be said of Alexa Bliss. She was never planned to feature at WrestleMania. I was hoping we were going to get a match between her and Nikki Cross, but I always made it clear that was speculation. She is planned to be a major player going forwards, but as I've already mentioned, she has a long-term, limited-date contract. That limited-date contract allows the WWE, if they want a lot of her later in the year, they need to give her some time off now. That is exactly what they have chosen to do. There is nothing wrong with Alexa Bliss. There is no backstage shenanigans happening. She's on a limited date contract. She didn't travel. She'll be back soon. Probably after WrestleMania. Speaking of WrestleMania, the original plan for Roxanne versus Bayley to take place at WrestleMania has not gone forward. In fact, it's one of many matches that they were planning to push to WrestleMania but have been thrown aside. Lyra Valkyria was originally being held for a match against Becky Lynch if Becky Lynch chose to return at WrestleMania, but a different creative decision has been made, which has required Becky Lynch to step away. And I'm interested to see how and when it plays out. As regards Lyra Valkyria now, Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria is an option if WWE believe that the Women's Intercontinental Championship gets that level of buzz. It has not. This has not happened. There's also a possibility of Zelina Vega versus Chelsea Green at WrestleMania, but again, it is not believed that there is enough interest to make that one happen either. There's a number of matches in the previous weeks that WWE and Triple H have been building to, but which aren't actually likely to take place at WrestleMania and will instead take place in the weeks around it. You heard me mention Becky there. I'm just going to catch up on the chat, and then we're going to talk about Seth Rollins. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Going to ask you guys a quick question. I will, Sammy, 1 second. Quick question for everyone. When Becky Lynch returns, do you want her to return as a face or as a heel? Sammy, what I've said about Alexa Bliss is that she'll be planning to return after WrestleMania. There was not at any point a planned match at WrestleMania. I was speculating we'd get a match against Alexa Bliss. This has not happened. She works a limited day contract. I do not expect to see her until after WrestleMania, so that essentially WWE bank the dates. Where was I? Eric says, I find it funny that the crowd chant Tony fumbled when all three expressed they wanted to go. Calvin says, what do you think of Naomi's new character and ring gear? I think it needs a bit of honing. You're welcome, Sammy, no worries. Cal says, see, I do think they'll come back eventually, and it's close because of the tweets and Insta posts. They didn't travel, that's the reason we haven't seen much of them. Not sure, Michael. Blue says, what do you think of the era of long title reigns? Well, I think some work, too many feel like a replacement for more dynamic storytelling. I'm glad we have some rotations. I think it did make the Jey Uso title win quite surprising, but we'll see how it goes from there. Zeno, I cannot confirm that at this time. Goodfella says, I don't think Alexander wouldn't have to fight Hangman then lose. Hangman seems a guaranteed win, I'll say that. Cal says, Alexa released a jacket of half Wire 6, half Fiend. Cool AF, in my opinion. I did report that well before she returned in November is when I reported it. Is she at this point in time? I cannot confirm. I've reported everything I can. Alex says, I think it's stupid they don't have Roxanne on Mania, then they don't have her on Stand and Deliver like she is that women's division in NXT. Got you, Aled. Which match do you want to drop? Goodfella says, I wonder if they just have Bayley win and just have a fresh opponent for Mania. Roxanne and Bayley I would have been into. Blue says this is exactly why I thought someone like Jade should be US champ to get the titles on Mania. That was considered. And now as regards Becky, let's see. Daz says heel, Juan says face, Rabbit says face. Jon Volker just doesn't answer. Goodfella says as a face. Blue says she should always be a face. Backwards likes her as a heel. Tyler says heel, C-Mac says heel. Matt Johnson says anti-heel. Riyadh says heel. Cal says completely depends on Seth's position. Matthew wants her to keep the man gimmick. Goodfella says them as a couple, heel could be fun. Billy says face. Okay. Christopher Leclerc says Roxanne Perez cost Bayley the Women's Intercontinental Championship next Monday against Lara Valkyria, and we get Bayley versus Roxanne versus Valkyria for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Kevin says WWE can do that match at WrestleMania 41 kickoff show. Nope. You guys know that there isn't kickoff show matches anymore. Wikipedia says Becky is a face. CFC says with what you said about the women's IC stuff, with my comment about Dakota and her still trying to go for the belt, I'd be right in assuming a women's IC stuff will all pick up back after WrestleMania 41. Depends what you mean by pick up. Bruce says face. CFC says heel. Aled says there's a 6-woman ladder match on Stand and Deliver. They can't put Roxanne in that. I just think it's stupid. She's carried that division. She's not in NXT anymore. That's why the call-ups happened. So she wasn't considered for it. Michael never cared for heel Becky. Calvin says, I was surprised Bayley didn't interfere and cost Roxanne her match in Kalani. That'd be a very heel move. Ishii says, Ishii, you've asked me that so many times and I've already said you've said the exact same thing for months. Months, mate. Blue says Becky was a very good heel, just like Austin was. I just won't boo her. Calvin says, do you see Trick Williams turning heel soon? Could not tell you. Goodfellow says, another freeway, but since we seem to be in the freeway match era, I like Rox, Bayley, and Lyra. Ken, no news on Liv whatsoever, unfortunately. So, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. There are rumours, there are rumblings, and I mentioned them right after Elimination Chamber. There are rumours and rumblings that Seth Rollins is going to be the third man in the grouping of The Rock and John Cena, with Seth essentially turning full damn heel because all of the people that he worked with and that he trusted have turned on him. Honestly, I kind of feel like he's justified. Seth would then ensure that John Cena and The Rock are still in the public eye. However, Seth would be doing the majority of the work. I believe this is why the triple threat will main event night 1 of WrestleMania. We need 3 more likes to get 100. Hit those likes, guys. Keep it coming in. Because I believe WrestleMania night 1, much like WrestleMania 40 night 1, will end with The Rock's hand raised in the air. I believe The Rock and John Cena will help Seth Rollins pick up the win, ensuring that Roman Reigns is furious at The Rock, CM Punk is furious at The Rock and John Cena, and Seth Rollins can find his way to the main event of night 2 to help The Rock against Cody Rhodes. Now this would mean the main event of night 2 essentially being Cody Rhodes against John Cena, The Rock and Seth Rollins. However, I think we might see CM Punk and I think we might see Roman Reigns. There's a lot of ways the main event of WrestleMania can go. I suspect it might go very similar to how it did last year. And honestly, I'm very much there for it. A heel Seth Rollins would also be why we haven't seen Becky back yet. Because if Seth Rollins is going to be a heel and Becky Lynch is going to return, I feel that there is a tremendous opportunity for Becky Lynch to also align with The Rock, with Seth Rollins, and of course with John Cena. How this plays out, I'm not sure. I do think we could see some element of Becky versus Bianca. If Bianca wins the match, Becky versus Io, Becky versus Rhea. There's plenty of opportunities there. But really, I do feel like last year's WrestleMania, people thought this is going to be horribly overbooked, and then it happened. I remember being on an Ole show previewing night 2 and saying this is exactly what's going to happen. This, then this, then this, then this. Which is exactly what happened, and people loved it. That's what I think is going to happen. Let's see how it goes. Thank you very much, everyone, on the YouTube side. We have broken 100 likes, up to 101, and just like that, a new peak of 140 viewers. Hell of a show. 140 people watching Spoiler Warning is beyond some of my wildest dreams. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for joining. On the TikTok side as well, 3,600 likes. Thank you to so many of you for hammering that button. We still have a little more to come, so stick around and tell me, do you think Seth is better as a face or a heel? Just follow up, Seth, face or heel. Sami says, Liv not being a main will be criminal after the years she's had. I'm confident she'll be defending the Women's Tag Team Championships against someone. Let's see, where are we? We're up to there with the arrival of our good friend Joe. Hey, Joe. Christopher Leclerc prefers Becky Lynch as a heel. Goodfella says, Trick or Javon have to be leader of Dark State? When you say it and I don't know what's happening, that sounds a bit racist. Cal says, I hope when the Wyatts come back we see a few differences with their masks. They have a lot of masks. Kevin says, no WrestleMania 41 for Sheamus. Pretty much no chance, no. Cal says, Jay Uso be like, the fact Phil is in the main event of WrestleMania and I'm not makes me sick. Yeah, he knows full well. It essentially comes down to good old Rock. The man knows how to throw his dick around. What can I say? Calvin says, some fans are saying that John's heel run has been lackluster. Michael Cole was pissed after his first heel promo, even calling her a prick. It's not been lackluster at all. People have loved this. Cal says, I think we'll see Roman help Cody. I do actually believe we'll see Stone Cold. I do not. Ole says, sounds like a mess. Is what is making me very uninterested in WrestleMania this year. So over multi-person matches, and there are so many of them planned. Blue says, I miss proper Mania main events. C-Max says, this would make sense too about Seth. Seth already has beef with Cody too. He really, very much does. Cal says, tag team ladder match. I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Hardy Boys. I would. Everton wants Seth as a heel. CFC says, I pray what you've just said comes to reality. That'll be absolute cinema. Ole says, you're correct last year. Then again, I don't ever doubt your credibility. Don't worry, mate. Last year I was saying this is the plan. This year I'm saying this is what I think's going to happen. Kevin says, sorry, Tom, but no Becky. That's going to water down the new group. Cal says, so good to have you back. Appreciate you. The Rabbit wants Seth and thinks he's better as a heel. Yon says, I can see it happen for what's going to go down in night 2. Rick says heel. Billy says heel. Ole says, Seth annoys the hell out of me, so it may as well be a heel. Blue says, Seth is a heel. C-Mac has Seth as a heel, definitely. Daz says heel Seth. Bruce says heel. Chris says Seth is a natural heel. That's his best work. Backwards says heel Seth is well overdue for a return. It makes sense for him to turn. Christopher Leclerc says Seth Rollins is better as a heel than a face. Everton says Cena, Seth and Rock versus Cody Punk and Roman in France. Bucket Hunter. I mean, why not? Tim says I hope Charlotte doesn't win at Mania. Seems unlikely at this point. Where am I up to? Michael says, can J&J Security join with Seth? That was a wonderful time. Declan says, heel. Brad says, Seth is good at both, but better as a heel. CFC says, bit rude of me, not also ask. Not being able to watch these streams a lot. Hope you've been doing good, Tom. Doing very well, thank you, mate. As a Damage Control fan, is there anything good for me to look forward to for Kairi, Asuka and Dakota? I wouldn't get my hopes up at the moment. They need them to be cleared first. Calvin says, too many superstars are being left off WrestleMania this year. Can't have it both ways. Do you want less people left off or do you want less multi-person matches? Cal says, I think Seth will turn heel, and to be honest, he has every right to be Cody teamed with Roman after Seth risked everything for him. Now CM Punk getting a main event, and Roman has given him a lot of hate. Alex says, sorry about keep going on about Roxanne. Cool. Eric Pence says, why did they cancel the Roxanne Perez push? A number of reasons. Essentially, they just didn't believe a Roxanne Bayley match on WrestleMania was a bigger option than some of the other options in mind. Goodfellas says, Oba being your main men's champion on NXT biggest PLE makes no sense to me unless there's a reveal that comes along with that. Why? I don't understand. Declan says, Becky and Seth winning the Money in the Bank this year could be the ultimate heel couple. And Alice says, heel Seth is the best Seth. What we're going to do now, there's two things I'm going to do. Firstly, I'm going to go through the WrestleMania card just to see where we are, particularly where we are compared to where we were when I first did my preview, which was over a month ago now. What can I say? I knew what I was doing. Oh wow, found a way too early Bleacher Report when I said 1 day ago. That ain't 1 day ago. Wow, that was bad. Let's go to WWE.com. Bleacher Report for it will be CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes. What the hell? So the match card we have so far, and these are just the matches that are confirmed. We have Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. I have Randy Orton winning this. Let me know in the chat who you have winning. And I have Randy Orton winning because Sami Zayn returns and helps. We have AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Honestly, I'm struggling for this one. I kind of think Logan Paul might pick up the win here. Typically at WrestleMania he loses, but stranger things have happened. Again, let me know in the chat what your predictions are. For the WWE Women's Championship match, Tiffany Stratton defends against Charlotte Flair. I have Tiffany Stratton retaining here. I have Tiffany Stratton retaining and Charlotte Flair picking up a loss. The big Royal Rumble win should be the big moment, and then I believe we should all just kind of move on. What can I say? That's what I'd like myself. Oh, we have plenty of people sharing their opinions already. Good to see, guys. Eric Penta, if you zip back a little bit, I do have news on Alexa Bliss and Wyatt Six in there. Cal says, Karrion Kross's contract is up this year according to PWInsider. Do you think he'll re-sign? Yeah. Calvin has Randy beating Kevin Owens. Daz has Randy winning as well. Christopher Leclerc has Randy Orton too. When it comes to the next match, Billy has Logan Paul beating AJ Styles. Cal also has Logan Paul. Calvin has Logan Paul too. And when it comes to Tiffany versus Charlotte, Cal has Tiffany. Billy has Charlotte. Calvin has Tiffany. Christopher Leclerc has Charlotte. Daz has Charlotte as well. Error, I've not been able to confirm that there is an injury to Kevin Owens. Everton thinks the only way Cena wins number 17 is with Money in the Bank. I don't see it. I just know that historically he hasn't wanted it. That said, we're in a new era now, and he may have been convinced. The Women's World Championship is currently only confirmed as Io Sky versus Bianca Belair, but we also know full well it's going to be Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. I have Io Sky winning this one. I do think we're heading into a real intense grudge match between Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, and I don't think that involves the title. So, pretty happy with that overall. We have for the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunter versus Jey Uso. I still have Gunter. I know a lot of people have started getting behind the Jey Uso train, and I don't blame you for that. I just don't necessarily agree. I have Gunter retaining here, and Jey Uso, unfortunately, losing out. We have the triple threat match, which I've already discussed. Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. Going to be real blunt. I have Seth Rollins winning this one, pinning CM Punk, and Roman Reigns simply a little bit distracted. And then finally, in the undisputed WWE Championship match, I have Cody Rhodes retaining over John Cena. Those are the 7 matches announced so far. I am expecting a Women's Tag Team Championship match to be added. I'm also expecting matches such as, for example, Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest, which is not listed there. It seems guaranteed that we're heading in that direction. I'm also expecting multi-man matches such as the Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Penta and Bron Breakker, as well as Jacob Fatu, possibly also Solo Sikoa, LA Knight and Braun Strowman. That does not leave much more room for matches. In fact, I only expect another 1 or 2 that haven't already been confirmed. Keep on dropping in the chat what your predictions are. Please do share. And I've got one last thing that I just want to do. And for that, I need to do... Okay, relax. Thank you. I need to do a good old-fashioned read. I have been working on something for a little while now, and it's coming together quite nicely. It is essentially a true crime style retelling of a particular WWE feud. Now, I've chosen for our first one The Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1998. This was the first main event feud I ever saw. So I'm going to read some out. Hopefully you guys find this entertaining, because I'm working really hard on this video and I really hope it's something you guys enjoy. So here goes. I'm not going to read all of it, just to be clear. In 1998, a fictitious blood feud between a real-life evil undead mage and a circus ringmaster turned real when the dead man's high-pitched and excitable pallbearer, attempted to embalm a man alive using props in a cheap downtown recording facility. That ringmaster's name was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Once an agent of the super-rich $1 million man, Steve Austin had, until 1998, shown no interest in being unwillingly mummified for entertainment purposes, but would somehow end his year in strenuous efforts to avoid being buried alive with a dentist/burn victim/Christmas monster. His attentions were instead focused on a piece of gold on the front of a belt that, for legal purposes, we cannot call a belt. This belt was a property of Vince McMahon, also known as a devil due to his face, personality, and general aura. Skipping ahead to not ruin the actual video. Confused by the fact that money in suits hadn't made a routine problem go away, Vince McMahon tried money in suits again on an alive person. That person was Michael Emmanuel Filet, the man with 3 faces. He's a lot. I don't want to do a 3-hour video, but he's a lot. Unarguably proof that God exists, Filet had been murdered 3 times during one 15-minute match the year before. It wasn't a great choice. With the evil of Vince McMahon steering him, Filet would transform into Dude Love and prove over the course of multiple matches that the Grim Reaper just was not interested. This guy tried everything, and Death just kept on walking. He was stunned so often and so hard that he had to wear a mask for the rest of his career to keep his jaw on and his brain in. His time as mankind wasn't a lifestyle choice, it was a survival instinct. So I thought I'd share that so you guys knew what I was working on. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That video will eventually be coming to the YouTube channel. And hopefully it's something you very much enjoy, because it'll be quite a long video. I'm aiming for about 25 minutes, half an hour. And there'll be lots of clips and etc. It won't just be this old face. I'm putting a lot of effort into the editing as well. So that's my show, guys. We have smashed our like target. We've finished at 110. We've shared all the news that we have. We've been live for 65 minutes. And the only thing left is what I always do say. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.